Hello, everyone. We're going to get started. We're at 2:15. I just wanted to thank everyone for showing up today for our webinar. This is my first WEC Reliability Conference, and I'm so excited by all the amazing people, friends, colleagues, peers in the industry that I'm meeting for the first time or reconnecting with. So today's presentation is about substation security, really around acoustic threat detection, and Archer's partnered with our friends at ACOEM to talk about their acoustic threat detection solution and how that pertains to enhancing your SIP 14 compliance. So a bit about myself, my name is Rosalind, and I'm an account manager at Archer. I love it at Archer, everybody's great. And on our side, we have our partner, Nick Weber, who heads our physical security practice. So Nick, I'm going to pass to you if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll pass to Mike.
Yeah, I see some familiar names here in the attendee list, so bear with me while I kind of give the rundown. Been with Archer for almost 4 years now. Prior to that, I was the head of security, and then got pulled into compliance at Grant PUD. So for those of you, if you've learned SIP, just know it is Hotel California. You don't get to leave. You can check out, but they'll pull you back. Before that, I was an auditor at WEC, is where I met a lot of the folks I see here today. Prior to that, 5 years at Homeland Security and about 13 in the Army between the National Guard and Reserve.
That's amazing. Thank you for your service, Nick. I know that a lot of us were maybe at the Veterans and Energy Conference, and lots of vets in this space. So shout out to anyone who's a vet on the line. And now I'll pass it to ACOEM, our sales manager, Mike Arnold, to talk a bit about himself and their solution.
Thank you, Rosalind. Thank you, Nick. Mike Arnold, I've been with ACOEM for over a decade now, working on various technologies on the predictive maintenance side and reliability, and now over on our security side with ACOEM, dealing with acoustic threat detection and how it fits in multiple applications. So
amazing. So before we jump into it, I just want to give us a little bit of an agenda, discussion topics. And just for everyone to know, we want to keep this light, educational, and informational. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, and we'll make sure we get to them either on this call or we follow up with an email. And also feel free to follow all our socials, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, as well as the socials for ACOEM that we'll send out after this webinar. So we're going to talk a little bit about substation security, kind of where it's at and where the challenges and threats are. We're going to talk about the relevant compliance regulations and industry standards. I think Nick is going to speak fondly about that. Any emerging technologies, I think Mike has that handled. And then again, Q&A, we're going to keep this super conversational, and we want to keep the conversation going. So please feel free to throw anything in the question box. So I'll pass it off to Nick to really talk about the compliance in SIP 14. Can you tell us a bit about that? I'm still new to this, so can you kind of explain it to somebody like me who really doesn't know the details of SIP 14? Yeah,
so SIP 14 is kind of a building requirement. It's almost like its own version of SIP, kind of baked into one. Where R1 and 2 are really about what is in scope, what's critical. R3 is kind of that communication piece over to others who may not have been involved in the R1, R2. R4 is doing a security threat and vulnerability assessment. And that's probably the most challenging piece of SIP 14 is R4, because it's really, we call it a choose your own adventure. It's a blank canvas, figure out what's out there, what's scary, what's going to hit you, how it's going to hit you, how bad it's going to be, and be realistic about it all at the same time. So that's always a really fun lab to go into. And then R5, that's what we're really going to focus on today. I'm going to skip over that and come back to it. R6 is when you have somebody unaffiliated outside your organization come back and really test your work on R4 and 5. But R5, and this is where I'll get into this in a minute, but it really focuses on basic security principles. And frankly, it's very similar, whether it's physical, cyber, personnel. Security is security when you boil all that down to having a strong deterrence. Make sure you present a strong perception of security, a lower perception of value. I always look at this as you're creating a business proposition for the attacker. Make it a bad business decision for them. The detect, this is the biggest, and I would say the most important piece, and it's knowing who, what, when, where, and how someone's coming up to your site. Delay is making them slow down, buying yourself that time to respond. Assess is where you clarify that who, what, where, and how. And that's another big piece of it. Communication cuts both ways. It's letting that bad person or that attacker know that they've been detected. It's also getting your response moving. And then the response piece is where you interdict or mitigate the threat. And this is one that I think we're seeing a lot of really exciting moves on the respond piece to getting more of the operations folks involved. But again, kind of bringing this back to what we're talking about today, none of these other dimensions start until you detect something's there. Otherwise, your detection is when the lights go out or your stuff is breaking or you're getting low gas, low oil alarms. And at that point, you're already into the recovery mode. You've already lost.
That sounds really reactive, and it sounds like it's not setting you up for success.
It's setting you up for an investigation at the end of the day. So for your 1B investigation. So we don't want to get into that space.
No.
And I think I've seen a few comments today, and frankly, I'm a little disappointed we're not having more discussions about it today, where SIP 14 is going. Obviously, FERC issued the order to NERC to go out and do study on SIP 14. That's due back in a few weeks here. And then they're going to go into a rulemaking. There's going to be a direction to reconvene the SIP 14 drafting team, or probably a new drafting team, since most of the folks in that are retired or moved out of the space.
So what I hear from you is that you're really going to be a solid resource for the next evolution of the SIP 14.
Yeah, it's going to be, you got to be plugged in. I've seen some of the early drafts out of the NERC report. I think we can expect to see things get more prescriptive, a little bit less to choose your own adventure. But what I've been really counseling anybody I've worked with or even talked to on the street, even my own kids, they love to hear it, is to build your SIP 14 in a strong security foundation, and really focus in on that detect, delay, assess, respond. If you're doing those things right, no matter what the standard language comes back as, it's going to be an incremental shift rather than a complete rebuild. So with that in mind, and really it's the timing on this has been pretty serendipitous, getting to know Mike and the team at ACOEM and what they're doing with the detections piece, particularly in the acoustic side. Right now, there's not a requirement to have acoustic detection in SIP 14 R5, but I don't know how you can mitigate a ballistic attack design basis threat if you don't have it, because your detection then is when your stuff is breaking or somebody happens to hear it, which a tree falls in the woods. Most of our substations are in the woods of some sort. You got to be able to detect it. If you don't detect it, you're again moving straight to recovery and your investigation.
Oh, good.
So with that, I'm going to turn over to Mike to talk a little bit about ACOEM.
So
great product.
Thank you, Nick. So like Nick said, it's very serendipitous. You know, I've been working with different energy companies for over a decade now, but more on the predictive maintenance side and keeping their turbines, pumps, compressors, equipment running and keeping their uptime there. And now transferring over a couple of years ago to the defense side and the security side for ACOEM and bringing this acoustic threat detection technology to the U.S. market from its military applications. And Rosalind, you can kind of switch to that next slide if you want to while I'm talking.
Nice.
So bringing this over to the civilian side, coming from the predictive maintenance world and working with all these different power plants and energy providers, my first thought was it was a no-brainer to go to substations and switch yards and critical infrastructure. And I've been knocking on those doors for about 2.5 years and haven't had a really good response until recently. And now people are lining up to learn more about it and where our solution falls. So ACOEM, I'll just kind of go into a background of what we do. We have 3 different divisions. We have a maintenance division, which I mentioned earlier is predictive maintenance, reliability tools for manufacturing facilities of every aspect. We've been in business globally for over 40 years. We also have an environmental side, which is where, air quality monitoring, weather stations, gas analyzers, just pretty much anything dealing with EPA and environmental monitoring falls. And then we have our ATD, our acoustic threat detection, which falls under our defense side of ACOEM. We developed this technology back in the 90s for the U.S. Army and NATO during the Bosnian conflict, and we've developed it, enhanced it, and improved it to where it is today. So over 3+ decades of getting the artificial intelligence right in some of the harshest environments in the world. And in 2019, we released this sensor to public use. So very exciting to show you guys what it can do. So I'll let you jump to the next one, Rosalind.
course.
So with the technology that we have at ACOEM for acoustic threat detection and detecting gunshots and other acoustic threats, we can work in multiple applications. So if people need a citywide landscape and high crime area, we can do that. If it's schools or campuses, corporate or schools, we can handle that. Sports venues, obviously. And then we fit perfectly into industrial applications and SIP 14 for the substations. And the reason we can do that is each one of our sensors has a multiple microphone array, and we can localize a threat with one sensor. So we don't need a network of sensors at a substation. We can set up one sensor, and Rosalind, you can jump to the next one. We can set up one sensor that covers about 750,000 square feet to protect or to give situational awareness in real time at that substation. So some of the unique things that sets us apart is we are an edge device. Like I mentioned earlier, we developed this for military use back in the 90s. So we have millions and millions lines of data on gunshots and different acoustic threats. So it allows us to be able to distinguish between a firework on 4th of July, a car backfiring, and other things. So you're getting very little to no false alarms. And then also you're getting that information in real times. Our AI is so good that we can allow the end user to control their gunshot program. So we don't need to filter data and take minutes to get it to you. You can get those alarms in real time, so you can take action, like Nick said, to know who, what, when, and where. So you're not doing a forensic investigation the next day or the week after. You are making corrective actions in the moment as it's happening. The other big thing that makes us unique is that our sensor can pair with a PTZ camera. So Nick was kind of talking about the SIP 14 requirements with having a visual, having audio detection, stuff like that. We can pair with that PTZ camera. So when we detect that gunshot, we can slew to cue that camera to where the threat is coming from to give you eyes and ears. So in real time, instantaneously, we can give you guys a glimpse of what happened, what's happening, who's shooting at you, where it's coming from on a map, audio alerts, the video that goes with it, and it's very easy to plug and play into your current system. So we can work with your current VMS, we can work with your current CAD software. We can even set our sensor up to run with a relay switch if you want to run it through your PLC or DCS through operations to be able to in real time de-energize critical components so they don't fail from overheating or other things, and you can maybe save some of your components. So very great application. It fits well in the SIP 14, and we're excited to partner with Archer moving forward with this stuff.
Yeah, we're excited to partner with you too, Mike. It sounds like we have a really proactive and a very synergistic relationship. And you talk about only having one sensor, that sounds also very cost effective, that there's not going to be a million things. Everybody has to run a million places. And I know that we actually recorded a webinar back in February that I'm going to throw in the link in a follow-up, but just to show you guys kind of how this works in real time. It's very cool. And I think once you guys, you almost need to see it to believe it, I think. But anyways, did you want to go over any key features, or did we want to jump into Q&A? I know that I have a million questions.
Yeah, we can kind of wrap it up with this one, Rosalind, and jump into Q&A with yourself and Nick and myself. But I'll just kind of reiterate what Rosalind said. We do have another webinar we did a few weeks ago with Archer that you guys can listen to. Or if you need to see a live demonstration, we can definitely set that up. I know Nick came down to Florida a couple of weeks ago. We had a live roadshow with over 60 people there in Florida, showing people exactly how the system works. And I'm sure Nick can speak to it, but everybody was impressed. It does what it's supposed to do. The AI is very good. So I'll kind of wrap up with key features, Rosalind, and then we'll jump to Q&A. So just a reminder, we can work with your existing VMS or CAD software. We can send alerting messages however you guys want to send them, whether it's through dispatch, text, or email alerts. If you need specific API, we can help develop that. But we can directly pair with your current NDAA PTZ cameras through OnVIF. And then we are just a PoE IoT powered device. So very low power draw at 6 watts. So if you have portable trailers, very easy installation, and each sensor has a 500-foot radius or about 750,000 square feet of coverage. So most of the substations I map out generally only require one sensor. Some of the larger ones take two, but it's very scalable and easy to deploy. So
yeah, that ease of deployment, I think that's awesome. Just one unit. How long does it take to deploy? Just from what you've seen on the ground.
If somebody already has the switch and the infrastructure, communications in place, mounting some brackets, about 5 minutes, literally putting it up, plugging it in, getting an IP address and configuring it to the camera takes about 5 minutes.
It took me longer to make my coffee. So we had a question come in. So Mike, I think this one's for you. Can the system detect suppressed gunfire and or subsonic rounds?
To the first part of that, suppressed gunfire, we have had success with detecting suppressed gunfire. If it's a subsonic round, it's a little bit different. We will detect it, but we might alert it as a firework. So we don't see a lot of subsonic rounds with suppressed and subsonic, but to answer your question, if somebody just has suppressed, we can detect it. So
wow.
And I'd add in that you're shooting it hardened infrastructure, so it's subsonic. Yeah, I'm less concerned about that. The damage you can do with that's quite a bit lower.
Amazing. So why don't I give kind of everybody maybe 30 seconds, a minute, just to throw some questions into the Q&A.
I want to throw one out for Mike that I already know the answer, but we didn't get into it. Is kind of the budgetary point. What are we looking at for 1 point?
Yeah, what I like to tell people to budget for is around $10,000 a point. So, that's if you already have a camera in place and you already have your VMS and other stuff, and we're literally just going in and calibrating it, mounting it, and configuring it. So most people, I tell them to plan around $10,000 a point. If you need a camera, that's just the price of the camera. I'm not a camera salesman. We just pass that cost along to you guys that we get it for. Our focus and our bread and butter is acoustic threat detection. So
I know back when I see Brady Phelps in here, when we were at Grant, I think we spent almost 10 times that on one mobile surveillance unit. So
yeah,
where were you 10 years ago?
in the Middle East. So
that sounds like a very accessible, budget friendly price point.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And this is, like life-saving technology, right? If somebody's shooting a gun, and I think this is amazing. I think this is amazing, especially you mentioned your work with NATO.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, getting a patent, getting any kind of partnership with them, like I've seen the paperwork in a past life, and it's just a nightmare. So it really speaks to kind of the caliber of client that you service and the trust that they put in you.
Yep. So we had a lot of success there in Bosnia, and that relationship grew into continuing to work in Afghanistan and the Middle East with U.S. military and other forces. And we still work with over a dozen different military units around the globe and border crossings and through our Defense Department. So very good technology. There's dozens of other gunshot sensors on the market. We're not the only one, but we've done the Pepsi challenge through a lot of third-party testing units, and we blow everything out of the water. It's not even close. So I encourage you guys. The price point is there. I've been in the maintenance world with power plants and other energy providers for over a decade, and this is peanuts compared to some of the other stuff that's purchased to keep things running. So it's great technology at a great price point and easy to integrate.
Okay, we had another question come in for you, Mike.
Yep.
How does heavy rain or snow or wind affect the acoustics and detection?
So that's a great question. So I live in South Louisiana. My counterpart, Russ Waddell, lives on the coast of Florida. And then we have a couple other offices spread out all over the U.S. So I have sensors up at my house. Russ has them out at his house. I've had two sensors that have been through, I want to say 5 hurricanes in the last 2 years. So they handle well in the environment. As far as the acoustic detection goes there, we actually have a third-party study we did with a company out in the Utah desert about 1.5 years ago, where we tested our sensor with 5 other sensors. When we were testing it, we were 99.6% successful, over 150 shots fired with 5 different weapons up to 800 plus feet away. And there was over a 30-mile-an-hour constant wind that day. So there was the ambient noise from the wind noise was over 80 decibels constantly and peaked out at 114. So there were some gunshots that I couldn't even hear with my ears that we were detecting with the sensor. And I can provide that third-party study through Archer or through myself if you want to reach out to kind of show you some of that data. But they perform in the wind, and the weather. And guys, I encourage you. Everybody wants to see this stuff firsthand. So if you're interested in seeing it firsthand, learn, real-time demo, we can start online. We can come out to you guys, reach out to Archer or myself at ACOEM, and we'll be happy to schedule it with you guys. So. And we will be out. I don't know if anybody on the call is going to be there, but ISC West be out there next week. We don't have a booth. We'll be walking around, but I'm sure Rosalind or Nick you can get them my contact info. I'll be happy to meet anybody in Las Vegas if you're there. So
yes, we will send out just an email thanking everyone for joining, obviously saying who won the $200 Amazon gift card. And we will be sharing everybody's information, some thought leadership, one-pagers, and links to the really great webinar we had in February. I think you guys will be very impressed.
Oh.
So, we don't have any other questions coming in at this point. Nick, did you kind of want to wrap up or, share anything?
Yeah, I'll just kind of throw out echoing what Mike said down at in Florida, that live fire. Those who know me know I'm kind of a skeptic when it comes to solutions. One of my favorite games at GSX is to walk around and play Stump the Chump. Mike and Russ and Keith flipped that back on me. I got stumped down in Florida. I couldn't come up with any questions to ask. I think most of the group that had questions had them answered pretty clearly. So always impressed to see that. And some of their partners they brought in with that Power Stack Vision 2020, some of the stuff they brought was impressive. And again, getting back to the price point, I wish I would have had that when I was in the hot seat back in the day. Kind of the call to action I've got. I know some of the folks on here, or I see Stanley here, definitely a physical security expert and kind of in that expertise area. But if you're not, make sure you share this technology, this info with your security team so they can take a look at it and then set up a demo. Worst it's going to cost you is half an hour of your time to let Mike take you through kind of the details on it. But with the increase we've seen in substation attacks, particularly back in November, December, I know the Northwest, we got hit with a couple different times. Obviously, North Carolina, a couple of lesser published ones out there as well. This threat's not going away until we make it go away. And this is a big part of it, is having that detection that you can get into your security teams, into your operations, your control centers. For my money, the best response you can do on a substation for a ballistic attack is to de-energize it. Gracefully de-energize, shed some load if you have to. Let them shoot at de-energized metal all day long. Go out, repair the fins, the bushings, put more oil or gas back into your equipment, and you're back in a couple of days, versus not knowing, having a catastrophic failure on a transformer or another piece of equipment, potentially having that site degraded or out completely for a year or two. So with that, I would say absolutely follow up with Mike, Rosalind, myself. If you have any questions, pass this information on to folks back home who might. And check out that webinar. It was a lot of fun to do. There's a lot of information out there. Tons of resources.
Yep.
All right, Mike, any final thoughts from you before we wrap up?
That's pretty much it. You and Nick did a great job, and I appreciate our partnership and getting to do these things with you guys. Our contact info is obviously at the bottom of the screen. Please reach out. We're happy to come out and talk to you more. Myself, Nick, Archer, and ACOEM. So just reach out to us. And this is a military proven technology that we've just released in the last couple of years to the civilian market. So this is new stuff. So just give us a shot and we'll show you what it can do.
Amazing. All right. Well, I think we're going to end it here. I wanted to thank our amazing co-hosts, Nick and Mike, for helping have this very important conversation as it pertains to SIP 14. I want to thank all the attendees for joining and just all the organizers of this event. It's been such a pleasure to have this webinar, and we hope you guys enjoy the rest of the day. Please email, LinkedIn, call. We're happy to respond. Bye, everyone.
Thank y'all.
Contact us to change the way your company thinks about security.